Assalamu alaikum. It was a great pleasure listening to very learned speeches coming from Dr. Rahman, Dr. Tajammul, and Malik Tehmood Malik Sahab, who had all of them had a lot of clarity, and that is very important in really talking in context of the issue. That's very important. Before I begin talking about the issue, I must say that I wish to pay my respects to those people who were martyred on the LOC from this side. Thanks God, there's now an agreement that there'll be no fire as far as LOC is concerned. But then, this is giving strength to the perception that maintenance of status quo perhaps is the understanding. I mean, this is the perception all over. Let's be honest about it. And this has to be broken. The inertia has to be broken. And we have to see that, yes, we have not compromised. And how can we compromise when war crimes are rampant in the valley? And they are looking towards this side for relief. So, keeping, observing circumspection is no answer, and we have to continue supporting the people, poor people of Kashmir, who are suffering, as is well known, res ipsa loquitur. Now, Malik Saab has spoken of the importance of lawfare in contradiction to what we call as the real war. That is what is his point. I think there is dearth in the lawfare efforts, and I accept that when he talks of it. Well, we were very fervent, let's say at the time Resolution 38 and 39 were passed in 1947, 48 and so on. And if you see this book, The Agony of Pakistan, written by the former foreign minister of Pakistan, who was arguing our case before the United Nations, you would see that we went for lawfare besides, you see, other struggles that we were doing. And we found that for the success of lawfare, you also must understand the ropes of chicanery. Because without understanding the ropes of chicanery, mere lawfare takes you nowhere. And I think Dr. Rahman was correct in assessing that, and also Sheikh Tajammul Sahab. We just need the power, the force. The principle ubi jus, ubi remedium is only possible when a remedy is there. And how the remedy comes about? It doesn't come merely through lawfare. It has to come through a combination of factors, in which lawfare is also an important factor. You have to build that. You have to create an ambience that is true, as Dr. Sajda has said. We have to create an ambience and then be persistent with the policy steadfastly pursued towards a particular aim. Now, you know, there are vacuums in the policy, in the coherence. We've created, let's say, the committee on Kashmir, but then we don't see much of that committee performing, which they could have performed as far as lawfare is concerned, because they were really not going for a brawl or a fight. They were really going for a legal fight. And that has, we found that there hardly has been much on that. How many years have been wasted? And it's all a lip service. Now, even the Azad Jammu and Kashmir government should be blamed for not pursuing lawfare effectively as Mr. Taimur would want them to. Take, for instance, one article of the constitution of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, where they had to appoint a plebiscite officer, Article 18. They haven't done it. Now, well, we are thankful to Barrister Sardar Ibrahim, who actually declared this area of Poonch and Muzaffarabad as Azad Kashmir. Otherwise, it would have been still something undecided and obscure or something. But that has happened anyway. Some people have done it. But the successive governments of Azad Jammu and Kashmir have never taken it as their privilege and as their duty to pursue Kashmir policies and talk about Kashmir and their brethren across in the world. Well, I know Sardar Masood has been talking about it in the OIC. Very recently, his speech, I've been able to understand, was wonderful, and I think he is a person befitting for the job. But before that, I don't think the presidents and all that, except one or two, maybe Sardar Ibrahim for once, and so on, have done anything effective in lawfare. Now, when we talk of power and lawfare, then we have the example of Armenia and Azerbaijan, and you saw the success, you see. And I've also been tweeting for Azerbaijan because the government of Azerbaijan wanted me to speak in favor of that because the territory belonged to Azerbaijan. And I had that honor and we did it. But then, had it not been the support of Russia and Turkey, the portion which is now reoccupied by Azerbaijan would not have been occupied. Now, so it's lawfare plus the strength, the power. Now, Malik Taimur is right when he says that this is the age of lawfare because, people would like to avoid fights. Yes, even amongst the Middle Eastern nations, of course, despite hostilities, we do not find bullets being fired. But then Middle East, I think, is not a good example because the wealth that they have and their performance in 1967 do tell us that they are not people of that Islamic age who would go for a fight right up to here or up to Maghreb or get into Europe and so on and so forth. So they are just now burdened with so much of wealth that they don't want to fire. But anyway, it's their business and they have gone forward with accepting many things which were totally against the interest of the Ummah. Take, for instance, the recognition of Israel, which has been done without any qualm. And UAE is so proud of it. The Prime Minister of Israel is going to visit them in a day or so. And there will be celebrations because they feel that is business. To hell with the Palestinians. If that was the case, why they kept on going for Palestine and why Yasser Arafat at the time of the Camp David Accord just on one point differed and the whole thing went into a limbo. They shouldn't have done it because there's no clarity. and there is no coherence in the policies. This is what is going on. As far as we are concerned, how we can build up the ambience. When you see the foreign minister of Pakistan had to really struggle at the OIC meeting previously to have the item put on the agenda of Kashmir, but nobody bothered about it. The carnage that is taking place in Kashmir is of Muslims. It's not of Kashmiri Pandits, maybe. So what? They didn't speak a word, not utter a word. We are thankful to Turkey and maybe Malaysia, but rest, you see, they were totally as if they were oblivious of what is happening in that part of the world. Otherwise, they could have pressurized India in many ways. But we are thankful to the committees of human rights under the auspices of the High Commissioner in Geneva. Two committees, and the last is of last year, who've called the Indian army as a rogue army and have talked of the atrocities there. We are also grateful to Saad Hussain, the former High Commissioner, who openly spoke against Indian occupation. Well, some people may argue that this was the reason why another one came and substituted him. But he did speak, and I had the honor of meeting him in Geneva 2-3 times, and I could see that he was very sensitive to what was happening in Kashmir at that relevant time. The question of annexation and 370 was not there still, but this was the case. And when Indians were not allowing the delegation of the High Commission to go visit Kashmir, he said, well, we are going to have the imagery from the satellite. That's what Rahat Hussain has stated. But every time we'll not get Rahat Hussain. And every time the opportunity to pursue lawfare at a time when we have somebody who's sensitive to the issue will not be there. And this is opportunity lost, and we have lost many opportunities of lawfare. I remember when I was at The Hague, I was invited by the parliamentarians in Barcelona, and that was at the behest of some Kashmiri diaspora over there. And we were talking about this, and they were rather shocked to know what really was the background of the Kashmir issue, how Mountbatten maneuvered from there, and how the conspiracy, turned a winning case of Pakistan into something which has gone in abeyance, and it is still in abeyance to this day. So lawfare and chicanery are two greatest weapons, great weapons which India is using, and it is using very effectively. I must say, I don't want to undermine our diplomacy here or our diplomats, but I must say that having been a diplomat myself and having seen how diplomacy works, as far as Indians are concerned, I must say that the passion and urge about which Dr. Rahman was also talking while we were sitting there is in abundance with them and not with us. So the diplomacy needs to be indoctrinated, and the narrative about which Dr. Sajida has spoken of should be clear and crisp so that we all have. Now the Prime Minister has promised that there will be desks all over, and that promise is still, I think, in the pipeline. Likewise, when we go to the embassies abroad, I think this aspect is hardly highlighted, although the diplomats have the opportunity of putting across this, because as Mr. Malik has said, our is a better case than those of Tamar and other places. So this is one thing. Now, having stated some of these facts, I must say that I must want to correct one thing, and that is that in case of human right violations, you see, there is more flexibility going to the ISJ. But as has been emphasized here, we do not have enough coterie of international lawyers to debate the pros and cons of going to the ICJ. So anyway, the government wants to play safe, and that is their wisdom, and I'm nobody to speak about that with any locus standi except as a citizen. But the point is that we've not even debated going to ICJ. Now, in the case of Balboshan, the Indian spy here, I was seeing how the case was being handled, and my interviews on the television would bespeak of my predictions, which came true later on. But India could go there despite reservations, and despite reservations whether the Commonwealth countries could take such matters to the. So reservations, yes. Under the law of treaties, we have reservations. But when a reservation is talking against the treaty, then that is eclipsed. That reservation has no value. And even domestic laws, according to the law of treaties, are subordinate legislation, and the law of treaty is more superior. Anyway, it's for the government to decide. Now, what options do we have? People have spoken of different options, and we should explore those options. And our elite in the international law should also think of it and see the options. Now, one option is that we invoke the universal jurisdiction. Now, this universal jurisdiction is available in many countries, including the United States, but I've always suggested that Belgium or Brussels is the best place for it. And we know many cases over there, but in England too. But in England, the influence of India is too strong. We would not win a case like Pinochet if we go to the UK. So, but Brussels, I think, is the best place for exercise of universal jurisdiction, invoking universal. We can do it. And we should keep doing many things. Now, somebody here, the learned speaker said, I mean, he meant was baby steps. The baby steps can lead to a bigger step. And we build up the momentum, and we build up the case for Kashmir. And of course, if we build up the case rather than show indolence, then we are going to succeed. And the other thing on which we are working, that is respect to protection, or R2P as the norm is called. We are working on it, and I think we will build up a case R2P. Now, what is R2P? That is respect to protection. It came about in 2005 when there was the summit of the heads of states in New York. And there the question arose was, what if people cannot go to the ICJ? What if states do not come to help and protect people, whether they are the nationals of that state or the population of that state? We must understand the difference between citizens and between the population. So anybody for instance, the Kashmiris are the population of India, but not the citizens of India in the legal sense, but they are occupied population in Kashmir. So, what is the remedy? You can't go to the ICJ because, of course, it's a state under the charter who can go. So, what should be done? The proposal came that, and this was in Article 136, 138 of that resolution of 2005, which said that it is the bounden duty of every state and the United Nations to protect population from carnage, from genocide, from the rest, and so on. So they adopted that resolution, and Pakistan was a party to it. And I think we were represented by Mr. Samarow at that time, or somebody who was there. But then India was there, and all nations were there, about 160 of them. And that became, you see, a milestone in respect of human rights and remedies against violations of human rights. So, as far as we are concerned, as the NGO for Kashmir, in the legal sense, we have thought of working for this option. And let us see if we succeed or not. Now, when we exercise this option, we exercise it under Article 99 of the Charter of United Nations. And Sheikh Tajammul Sahab has already spoken of that article. And Dr. Rahman also has spoken of that article. He also talked of 103. Now, under this article, the Secretary General is duty bound to take notice of a conflict which can lead to a war. And India, Pakistan, I mean, see the flashpoint, there can be nuclear war. And so this is a strong case in creating the sensitivity for the Secretary General to take the matter to the Security Council. Now, Security Council has several options. It has exercised such options in case of some of the African countries, in case of Libya, in case of Syria, and so on and so forth. There are many countries where this option has been exercised. Then it's the responsibility of the Security Council to see that there is mitigation in all that, and there is accountability also in that. Now, the Security Council can, as it happened in the case of former Yugoslavia, create a tribunal if they want. But that will be really a lot of persuasion before we can go for that. And then it can create a tribunal for war crimes. This can happen. It can also refer the case to ICC, and Sheikh Tajammul Sahab is right in saying that if the Security Council wants, as has happened in the case of Bashar of Sudan, it has happened. So we have the precedents. Lodging a complaint with the prosecutor of ICC, I know Miss Sauda very well because she comes from Gambia as well. She is very enthusiastic and she does work, but then will she be able to really be effective? But there's nothing bad trying, and there's nothing bad lodging such complaints and making people aware of that. So when we talk of the remedy which I'm suggesting we are working on, let us see, because we must understand, for all those who may be having reservations on this, that international law is a developing law. And if we go empirical on certain things, there's nothing wrong. And if a non-governmental agency like our body makes an attempt, it's bringing no bad name to the government, nor it is creating any difficulties with respect to certain stands or aspect of sovereignty and so on and so forth, which may be having lurking fears in their mind, because we are an NGO and we can do it. Anybody can do it, but we have become more organized and we are trying to do it. Another thing which is also a collateral to what I've said is that there are 192 countries in the world and about 160 national institutions of human rights. I have been heading one, and therefore I am exposed to them through the gallery, the global institution of such rights. Well, I know Geneva very well, and we know the Human Rights Council, and we know the working of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. So, if we communicate to them, to these 160 national institutions of human rights, of the plight of the Kashmir people, what is happening, alleging the aspect of genocide, the war crimes being committed, the reports of the two committees of High Commissioner are with them as a proof itself, we can create a lot of opinion, lot of public opinion favorable to our narrative, and we should do it. The National Commission for Human Rights is now defunct, and I've always suggested that if I had continued, or if I'm again to continue, well, I would have taken that matter all along after the last year's abrogation of 370 and 35 articles. So, but that is not there, and some other departments of the government concerned with human rights are oblivious of this aspect, because I have practically worked and understand it. So this is another option which we can exercise, and I think people like Malik Saab and all can always register this and think of it and help us in, he's already offered free assistance in his speech. So I would request that people should go for deliberations on this issue, as we are going to really go forward and march ahead. So we have to break the inertia. We have to fight the indolence. We have to create what we call as a passion, an urge to solve this outstanding issue. The governments have their own policies, have their own considerations, have their own weaknesses and so on, but we are quite independent of that, and I think we will be able to at least do something, create a mark. So it's better trying rather than not trying. What do you say, Mr. Qadri? It's better trying rather than not trying. Well, anyway, it was a very educative session with all the gentlemen who came and spoke here, and the lady too. And this, if somebody is taking notes, I hope you are taking notes. So these notes will help us in dispelling the cobwebs, if any. And please help us in going forward with the options. I'm most grateful for your patient hearing. Thank you.